Welcome to Ink and Flame. I'm your host, Tina Kutras, and tonight we're sitting down to talk with Krystal Kirchberger, and she's going to talk about her book, The Collection. Hi, Krystal. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
So excited to chat with you. I would love to know where you're coming to us from.
I am on Georgian Bay in Ontario in a little town called Midland. I don't know if you're familiar with that area at all, but
Um,
yeah, so just a smaller little town on the bay. It's quiet. It's nice.
and beautiful, I imagine.
Yeah, it is. There's some scenic areas for sure.
Yeah. And how's the weather there? Getting better?
Today it's cold and gross.
Yeah, I know.
I feel like it's like 8 degrees, but since we're on Georgian Bay, it's always windy, so we get that like cool breeze off the bay.
Yeah.
So it hasn't been very nice lately, but I'm looking forward to the warmer weather. I feel like it's been a really long winter.
I know that Ontario really hasn't had its grip lessened up very much. It's kind of still hanging on a little.
Yeah, at least the snow's gone because we had a crazy amount. I was joking around saying like we are gonna have snow till like June because it wouldn't melt.
Ugh, can't
Yeah.
imagine. I'm on the East Coast, so
Okay. Yeah,
we get
I
more
feel like
rain than it.
yeah, I feel like we got more snow than the East Coast did this year.
Yeah. We typically are pretty wet throughout the winter, and this year was probably the first time that we had snow hit the ground and then stick with us for like the entire winter season, and then a
Wow.
couple little snow storms in between after spring started. But for the most part, it was a pretty good winter in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
But now I'm done with it. Let's move
Yeah,
on.
I'm done with it. We're over it here.
Exactly. So let's get started and talk a little bit about your history. What got you started into reading in the first place?
I've always had a love for books going way back. I feel like I remember my dad taking me into the library all the time because I just needed to get my hands on anything that I could read. I was totally one of those kids that was sitting like in school, hiding the book inside their desk, like reading, and then until the teacher catches you and takes your book away. So that's all. I don't know if anyone can relate to that, but that was definitely me. I can't even tell you how many times I had my book confiscated in school. So
You'd
my
think the
love,
teachers would be happy about that.
but I guess maybe not when we're supposed to be doing math or something. Harry Potter was more important, okay?
So do you still, or have you ever gone back to the bookstore your dad took you to?
So my dad used to take me to the library all the
Sorry,
time.
library.
Yeah. So I don't live in that town anymore, so I don't go to that particular library, but I do frequent the library in my town. And I'm actually doing like a local author book fair there this week. So that's
Oh,
kind of
that's cool.
exciting. Yeah, I'm excited to meet like other, because I think they said it's going to be like 14 authors. So I'm excited to meet some other local authors and see what else is out there. Hopefully, maybe somebody else in the fantasy genre. We'll see.
Very cool. So
Yeah.
you're not the one organizing it. You've been invited to it.
Yes.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it's my first time going to like or being one of the authors at a book fair, I guess. So that's exciting for
It's awesome.
me. Yeah.
So were there any authors or books that made you think I want to do this?
Well, I feel like that's a tricky question. Yes and no. Being an author has always been kind of like a job that I've been fascinated with, but it seemed kind of like one of those unattainable dream jobs. So when reading books like I'll use Harry Potter or A Court of Thorn and Roses or something like that, like big ones as an example. So you see that like J.K. Rowling and Sarah J. Maas were able to turn these worlds that they made up in their head into multiple books and wildly successful careers. Of course, you think like, wow, I want to do that too, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like there's so much more behind it than just simply sitting down and writing that book. So it's like authors like that definitely inspire me and make me think like I want to do that too. But it is tricky.
Yeah, it is. So did you face any unexpected challenges when transitioning from a reader to a writer?
Yeah. So the biggest one for me was that when I became a writer, I kind of left the reader behind for a bit, which
I
I
totally
know
get that.
sounds terrible and like upsetting. It was, but that was kind of my reality for a while because any of the free time that I normally had for reading got dedicated to writing. So when I first started writing, I had to give up reading for a while. And I'm not talking like years or anything. Like I didn't pick up a book for years. No, no. But there were like I can say there were stretches of like months where I didn't wasn't able to read a book. Like I remember when Fourth Wing came out, I was like, oh my God, I need to pick this up right now. But I just couldn't. And I had to wait like what felt like forever to read it. So I think that was kind of the biggest adjustment for me. Like the biggest challenge was realizing that writing my own book meant putting aside other people's books for a while. And I know there's tons of authors out there who are totally able to like multitask and like they're reading like five books while they're writing and all this stuff. But for me, like personally, like I need to keep it separate in my in my head. So
I
so that was a big
totally
one
get
for me.
that. Yeah. So how do you feel like your reading tastes have changed or evolved as you grew older and became a writer yourself?
Yeah, so I think that my taste has only so I've been a fantasy reader forever. That's kind of my genre. So I think that my reading style hasn't evolved, but my taste has evolved with my age, like you mentioned. So, you kind of grow mentally and emotionally as you yourself grow, and you find out that you kind of need that from the characters you're reading about as well. So you kind of need that emotional depth from the characters. And if you're reading like, I'm not pooping on the YA category at all because I love a good YA book. There's tons of great ones out there. But some of those YA books are really meant for that younger, like 13-year-old category. And you really don't get into like that emotional depth with the characters. And
Yeah.
as an adult reading it, it's something you kind of need out of your characters, right? Otherwise, it's just kind of read as like juvenile, right? So,
Yeah.
um, I think that's what kind of grew for me. Being a fantasy reader, that'll never change for me.
So right from the beginning, you were fantasy. That was your genre. What was, aside from Harry Potter, did you have any other early favorites?
Yes. Fast forwarding from Harry Potter maybe to like my teen years, I think my favorite book, maybe when I was like 14 or 15, was by Stephanie Meyer, and it's not Twilight. It's not Twilight, everyone. No, it was The Host. And if you haven't read that one, it's actually really, really good. And it's definitely a book that I revisit like frequently because I just think it's such a good story. Like the world that she built, the idea behind that story, it's just so good. And like the characters are great. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, one of my children got me to watch the movie and I realized that the movie is never as good as the book. I get that.
Yeah.
But at that stage of my life, I had kind of shifted gears into different books and I never read that book, but I did love the movie. I thought it was a very good adaptation. Well, I mean, I didn't read it. I guess I can't really say that,
Yeah.
but I did feel like the whole world was presented and she did a fantastic job telling that story. It was amazing.
Yes. Um, Yeah, so the movie, like, as somebody who's a big fan of the book and has seen the movie, I know, like, everyone always says, like, oh, the movie, like, the book's way better. And I think they did do a good job with the movie. It's not something that I mind watching. Like, some of them are just terrible, and you're like, I
Yeah.
cannot watch this. But that's not one of them. I think they did do a good job. But that being said, the book is just even like, it's so good. It's so good. You
I think
gotta
my
read it.
daughter had read both, read and seen it. I think she had read it and she wanted me to watch it because she had read it. So
Yeah, no, that makes
actually,
sense.
she got me into a lot of them. She got me into the Hunger Games and into quite a few other books. Like she got me back into reading actually because she started picking up books. The same with my oldest son. So it's fun to have those influences when they start to get to a certain age and they're starting to recommend stuff, even though
Yeah,
they're kind of designed for a younger crowd, right?
oh, for sure. And like I said, like there's some great young adult books out there, even if
Yeah.
they're meant for the younger crowd, like the Hunger Games, for example, like you said, like I feel like that's ageless. Like it doesn't matter what age you are, even though it's meant for young adult, like it's great. It's great.
Yeah.
You can read it as a teenager, you can read it as a 30-year-old, 40-year-old, doesn't matter. It's a great
Yeah,
story.
exactly. We were at a release party in January for Onyx Storm,
Mhm.
and they announced the Sunrise on the Reaping release party, and the room went bonkers. Like people were so excited about that book when it came out.
Yeah, I think it's great she's writing new ones again, like new stories within that same world. I love when authors
Yeah.
like revisit the same world. Cassandra Clare's world, like her Shadowhunter universe. It's just like
Yes.
it's genius. Every single one of them she puts out, I'm like, I need it. I need it right now.
I
It's so
also
great.
love the way that she went back and forth in time with the release of those books. Like one series was one time frame and another series was, a different time frame. So I really
Yeah,
enjoyed those books too. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. It was great. And she connected all the characters with like the last names, like their ancestors and everything. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very
Yeah.
cool.
Very well done. All right. So
Yes.
something to
Okay.
aspire to for writers around the world.
Yeah.
So did you have any tropes or anything that you loved to play with or subvert during your writing?
I don't think so. Like there's no trope to me that it's like so important to me that it has to be included in my books. I know like there's a lot of popular ones out there, like morally gray, like character, all that stuff. It's super popular in the fantasy world right now. I don't think there was one that for me that like I had to have it. But I do like the fated mates trope. But I feel like you have to be careful in writing it as to not make it like too obvious for your readers. Otherwise, they kind of know where the story's going, especially like in the romantasy category of
Yeah.
fantasy. So, I do like the fated mates one, but you have to be careful with it because nobody wants spoilers. Like, where's the fun in that, right?
Yeah, exactly. You don't want it to be too predictable, for sure.
Yeah.
So, how do you see the genre evolving for the fantasy or romantasy genre? How do you see it changing?
I feel like it's been really cool to watch the fantasy and romantasy genre evolve lately. Like, it's not just about dragons, and I mean, it is about dragons right now, especially with Fourth Wing, but it's not just about like dragons and epic quests anymore, you know? Now there's so much more focus on like the characters, their emotions, those slow burn, angsty romances that everyone secretly or not so secretly lives for. Romantasy especially is like just thriving right now. I love it. The vibes from it, like give me a morally gray love interest. We talked about that. Like, I don't know if I'm allowed to say ass. A badass. Am I allowed to say that?
Sure.
You edit it out if you need to. A badass main character, like, and some magical chaos, and I'm sold, like, as a reader. You think that romantasy is just like blossoming as a category right now. Um, and I think also evolving. Like readers are really into series right now rather than just standalone. It's not just about like one book. It's about staying in that world as long
World.
as you
Yeah.
possibly can and getting emotionally attached to like all of the characters, even the side characters, it's not even a main character. So yeah, I think it's such a good time to be a fantasy reader right now.
I totally agree with that. And for a lot of reasons. One of the things that, and I'm going to use Sarah J. Maas for obvious reasons, but one of the things I loved about reading her books, and I see you've got Crescent City on your back shelf there.
I do.
I love the way it starts off with one character and then all of a sudden you've got 20 and you know everything about them and you're just cheering them on. Like I love the world building. And I know that with that series specifically because it's like an urban fantasy that it kind of had a little bit of resistance because of what everybody had kind of thought she was about. Everything Sarah J. Maas had done was all in the fantasy world. And then everything kind of kicked over and we're talking about cell phones and cars and what?
I know, and I think she did it beautifully though. Like urban fantasy isn't something I read too often that's not like something I avoid, but it's not something I typically pick up in a fantasy book when I like am reading the blurb on a book. They usually don't draw me in, but I think she did such a good job with Crescent City, like blending the fantasy with like the real world essentially or the urban world. So I think she did amazing. I love Crescent City.
Yeah, me too. So if you could collaborate with any other author in your genre, who would it be and why would you choose them?
I feel like the obvious answer is someone like Sarah J. Maas or Rebecca Yarros for their beyond well-known books like Fourth Wing, Avatar, Sin City, Throne of Glass. There's a reason that Sarah J. Maas is known as the Queen of Fantasy. So I feel like they're the obvious answer, but for me, it's going to be someone a little lesser known, and I'm hoping it's well known enough that maybe some of these listeners recognize it. I think you will. But Lynette Noni,
Okay. No.
She has a few series, but the one I specifically like is the Prison Healer trilogy from her.
Okay.
She just, if you haven't read them, just run, like go get it. Go get it. Go get
What is
it.
it?
It's
What is
so,
it called? The Prison Healer?
yeah, the Prison Healer trilogy. But why her? I can remember reading those books and just absolutely falling in love with each and every character. Not just like, I know like people like Zayd or Zayden from Fourth Wing and people like Reese or from Akotar. And don't get me wrong, I like them too. They're great. But like I just remember reading these characters from this book and like Jaren and Cal and like Cal's not even a main character. He's like a side character, but like did she bring me to tears with him? Absolutely. Like and that's as much as I'll say on him because I don't want to spoil anything. But like yeah, like Jared and Cal, like those are my boys. Like I've never had an author make me emotionally invest myself like she did for those books. Like
Wicked.
yeah, so it would be her that I would want to collaborate with because I don't think I've ever had like that emotionally depth with a character, like that emotionally involved with these characters. Like she did such an amazing job.
Awesome. What a great recommendation. So I've written it down.
Awesome. Check it. Let me know how you like it.
I've got so many books piling up because of this podcast, because I love the ones that I'm talking to with the authors and then they make recommendations. I'm currently listening to The Priory of the Orange Tree, thanks to my last podcast. It's hilarious.
I
Anyway,
know. It's crazy that the like to be read pile. Oh, it's just
it's a
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
So, can you share the inspiration behind your book? Let's start talking about the collection.
Okay. So, I know this is unexciting, but the idea just kind of came to me randomly. There wasn't like a ton of inspiration behind it. Although I do see, obviously, as an author, I read the reviews people give me, good and bad. So I have seen people say that like this is like influenced by Akotar, this is influenced by Hunger Games, stuff like that. So I myself, as the author, don't think that they influence me too much, but those are books that I have read and enjoyed. So I'm sure that just like any fantasy author, inspiration comes from the books that you love to read. And so maybe there was some kind of inspiration from there. But really, the idea just kind of came to me randomly one day. And I immediately knew that like I wanted to start this story right away to the point where like I had it in my head. I was in my, it was in my, I was in my car. I made like notes on my phone. I was like, I can't forget this. This needs to stay in here. So like the minute I got home, I literally wrote the first two chapters before I had even formulated like the rest of the book, just because like it was in there and I needed to get it down like, on paper. So yeah, it just kind of came out of nowhere and it hit hard, and I didn't want to forget anything running through my mind, so I just had to get it out right away.
So, I mean, you were in your car, but what sparked it?
That's the boring part. Really, nothing.
Hello?
I was like, I know. I can't even remember what I was thinking about at the time that it hit me, because at the time that I had this idea, I wasn't writing anything else. There wasn't any other ideas on the table. So this one just kind of came out of nowhere and I immediately had to go with it.
Okay. So you went from having never written before to 2 chapters in, I'm going to do this.
Essentially, yes.
That's awesome.
When you just have that idea, I guess it's just, you gotta go with it, right? I mean, and
So,
since then, I've had a ton of other ideas for books, but I've kind of been focusing on this series and one other one.
okay. We'll get to that in a bit. So, do you think that the story has evolved a little bit from your original concept, or did it stay pretty true to your initial vision?
I think it stayed very close to my original vision. So after I had that like initial burst of I have to get everything out before I forget it, I kind of took the time to obviously plan out the book from there and not just keep writing and winging it. So I think there were times that when I was writing that I would have an idea that I liked even more than what I had plotted out originally, and I would change it up. But mostly I think I stayed true to the original vision.
Awesome. There are like lots of people that totally pants their way through it. And they let the characters develop and they just let it breathe on its own. And I don't think that there's any right or wrong way to tell a story. You know what I mean? I mean,
No, I
otherwise
don't think so
the
either.
choose your own adventure from back in the 80s wouldn't have existed.
Those books are so fun.
They are. You see them sometimes in like an old bookstore or something, and I sometimes want to grab them, but there's always like a cheesy cover, so
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. No, I don't.
so
I agree. There's no wrong way to do it.
that's right. So how do you approach your world building or character development? Do you have a specific process?
I like to plan them out in advance as much as I can, but that's, like I said, that's not to say sometimes when I'm on a roll with writing and inspiration hits that I change things on the fly. I'm sure that I've like added a character that I never planned on having in the book, like in that moment, and was like, oh yeah, I need this conversation to go this way. So I'm just gonna have this, like add this character in so that this next scene that I'm thinking of happening, it has to have this character. Uh, so I do like to plan things. I'm kind of a planner in everyday life as well. So, for me, having it planned out is ideal, but yeah, it doesn't always go that way. Sometimes I change it up.
So do you have a favorite scene or something that just every time you think about it, you just melt inside? If you can tell us without any spoilers, of course.
I wouldn't say this scene makes me melt, and I won't say much about it because it would be a massive spoiler. But the ending is actually one of my favorite scenes, particularly the final scene in the book, but only because I know as a reader, it was just such a like, oh, come on moment that leaves you wanting more. Sorry, I had to, readers. I'm sorry.
So it's a cliffhanger. Is that what you're saying?
And I've had so many people like in reviews and like people I know reach out to me and stuff and be like, "Are you serious with that? Like, when is the next one?" And I'm like, "I'm so sorry." So I think that was like one of my favorite scenes for me. Also because I know, like, as the author, like I know where that scene's leading to, like what's coming next, and it
Yeah.
makes me excited. That's probably one of my favorite ones. There's like as a like fantasy romantasy book, like there are some of the more like romantically focused scenes that make me kind of go, "Oh, that's nice." But I think that the ending is like my favorite one.
So do you have like a movie playing in your mind when you see all this visually stunning stuff that you've created?
Yes, I do. I love like actually like I love being descriptive and like even right down to like the outfits and stuff. And especially in the fantasy worlds because they don't dress like we dress, right? Like
Right.
these girls get to wear these fabulous gowns and all this stuff, right? So
Yes.
like being able to like dream these up and like write them out, like it's so much fun.
I find I'm constantly like Googling what type of armor is this or, like trying to figure out how to describe one thing or another because, I don't know the different parts of armor. So it's kind of funny when you're writing and trying to visualize or trying to write down what you're visualizing. Okay, what do I call that?
I know, I feel like with the fantasy genre, sometimes you have to like look things up because it's armor, it's weapons, it's all
Yeah,
these things that you
exactly.
wouldn't typically like think about or know.
Yeah, exactly. So, do you figure you have any kind of quirky writing habits, anything that you like, anything you do that get you into the creative zone or rituals?
Again, kind of boring. Not really. I'm so boring. I like to write on my laptop because I don't like to be stuck at a desk for too long. So I do like to write on my laptop because then I can at least kind of move around from one comfy spot to the next or even like head outside on a nice day like in the summertime or something. But yeah, I really like to write on my laptop, have a comfy spot. I like it quiet when I write. I know a lot of authors have like these playlists that go with their books and like I was listening to this when I was writing this and all this stuff, but and I'm totally a music person. Like I love music. I love it loud, but when I'm writing, I like to have like a quiet space so I can just kind of like zone in on what I'm working on.
I think that's just as much a ritual, so it's not really boring. It's just your ritual.
Yeah.
Just giving you a little props here.
Look at me, look at me.
So, It's a real thing. How do you handle writer's block or any self-doubt during the writing process?
So I think it's a good question for me because the self-doubt is real sometimes. And I commonly experience this feeling when I'm writing, referred to as imposter syndrome. So it is as it sounds, but for those who don't know what imposter syndrome is for writers, is that kind of sneaky feeling that you're not actually a real writer. Even if you have you're actively writing, you've published a book, you've received praise for that work, all that stuff. It's just kind of that inner voice that whispers stuff like you're not good enough to be doing this, or
Yeah.
um, someone's going to realize that you shouldn't have written this book. Like, you don't belong here. like,
Yeah. Who do you think you
um,
are?
yeah, exactly. So I think I experienced that, and for me, it hits the hardest after I have read a really good book. Um,
No.
we've mentioned Fourth Wing before, so like after I read Fourth Wing for the first time, I was just like, okay. I was like, all right, well, like, do I even continue with my book? Because like, what was that? This is not my book. Like, I thought like what I had was great until I read that. Like, that was kind of the imposter syndrome I was feeling. And I feel like I get into that kind of slump every time that I read like a really, really good book, like something that really resonates with me. So dealing with that can be kind of tough, but I think you just kind of have to get through it, get over it, keep writing.
Okay. Do you do anything to get over it or just keep writing?
I just keep writing, and sometimes it takes time. Like sometimes I'll have to take like a little bit of time off, whether that it's because I've been blocked from writing because of the imposter syndrome, or if it's just, I have it in my head and I'm ready to write it, but I just need to take some time and revisit it when when I'm ready to proactively work at it again.
Yeah. So when did you publish the collection?
It came out in July of 2024,
Okay.
almost a year ago now.
Yeah, that's awesome. And how far out is its sequel since you left everybody hanging on a ledge?
I'm so sorry. Oh, it's coming. It's coming. No, I am working on it. Something for me with, like you mentioned, writer's block and stuff. Something for me is that I need to write. I need to be like passionate about what I'm writing. So if I'm not passionate about what I'm writing, I know that it's not going to translate into the book. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. It'll be hollow.
So So for me, after the collection came out, I took a little bit of time off after having put so much time into it. And then this other book idea kind of hit hard. And I really wanted to start working on that one. So what I should have done is just been like, hold off and start book two here. But what I did instead was I started that other book. And that's not to say I haven't started book two. Book two has been started. But because I decided to write a standalone book before I finished book two of this one, it kind of pushed book two a little bit further down.
Okay.
It is coming, but it likely, you might see it at the end of 2025, but it's probably going to be 2026,
Okay.
just because in the meantime, there will be something else coming out.
Nice.
Yeah.
Did you want to share anything about that one or is it still under wraps?
It is still under wraps. It's still in the fantasy genre, romantasy, and it is a standalone, this one, so there's no sequel to it. So it's just gonna be the one book.
So no cliffs.
No cliffs. No cliffs. I owe my readers that. So yeah, that one I'm hoping will be out soon, but um, everything takes time in the writing process, and right now the book itself is out of my hands and into somebody else's. So
Cool.
now we wait.
That's awesome. So did you take any time to read in between your finishing writing one and moving on to the next? Or did you just go right into writing more?
I definitely took some time to read. And I'm finding that I'm able to find a little bit more balance between the two now as well. So, like I said, I am working on book two right now, but I have been reading as well. And I have this group of girls that I constantly do like buddy reads with.
Cool.
We've met online, and I think we have so many buddy reads on the go that they kind of they push me in a positive way to keep.
That's awesome. So do you drink coffee, tea, or something else when you're writing, or nothing at all?
I don't drink coffee or tea ever.
Really?
None for me. No.
All right.
I know. Shocking. I know people are always like, sorry, what? Like, how do you live? How are you standing
How
right
could you
now?
not be addicted to something?
No, yeah, no tea, no coffee or anything like that for me. I think like the most caffeine I get is probably out of like a can of pop. Yeah, so I would just as far as having a drink while writing, whatever. It could be water, it could be pop, it could be juice. Nothing, no coffee or tea for me.
So if you could meet any one author, who would you choose?
Ooh, meet an author. That's tough. That's tough. There's so many good authors out there. It's hard to pick. I feel like I would, like I said, I wanted to collaborate with Lynette Noni, so I feel like I have to pick her to meet her because, yeah, that's part of that collaboration. Um,
You'll start
there's
somewhere.
also, yeah, there's also like, you would love to meet Sarah J. Maas and pick her brain because, like, I don't know how she does it. I don't know. Like, same with even like Cassandra Clare. I don't know how she comes up because the Shadowhunter world is huge. Like, I can't even count how many Shadowhunter books are back there because, and she just like pumps them out, and there's so many of them to the point where you think like, okay, like this is gonna get old at some point, right? But no, it's never old. They're always amazing. I don't know how she does it. So someone like her would also be someone I'd like to meet and like pick their brain because I don't know how they do it. Like, I don't know how they write all these different characters so amazingly and they build this crazy world that they can write 15 plus books in and still have their readers like epically captivated.
Yeah, exactly. Robin Hobb was that for me. I really, really love Robin Hobb.
Yeah.
I'd like to know how they write that fast, personally.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, sign me up for that question too, because I am very curious, especially like I feel like we got some really quick turnaround time with Rebecca Yarros with her first like Fourth Wing came out and I feel like Iron Flame came out the same year. And then Onyx Storm wasn't that bad of a wait.
I think
And
it was a
I know we're
year. Yeah.
waiting. Yeah, and I know we're waiting a little bit longer for like the next one and people are complaining, but like I'm like, man, she deserves it. I don't know.
Yeah.
You take that break.
We'll think
I don't
about
yeah.
Jennifer Armentrout. Jennifer Armentrout like really whips them out. She's very fast.
She
I'd
is.
love to
And like
know her process.
yeah, because you know what? Hers aren't small books either. Like they're pretty thick. So
Huge. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So, what's one book that you would love to be able to say you wrote?
Of course, the collection. Oh wait, I did write that.
Let's go with that. That's perfect. I love that.
Oh, I had to.
So, let's take a look at that book again. I think you showed me something pretty cool about it.
Was it the
Yeah.
edges?
So,
Yeah.
you were telling me about your painted edges and you had a little bit to say about it. So, let's talk about your painted edges.
Yeah, so I did as a Canadian author. I'm like you're Canadian as well, so and you're in the bookish industry, so I'm sure you know as well. There are not a lot of people who do like bookish things in Canada, like sprayed edges and stuff like that. Like everything is just across the border in the States for I feel like a lot of things. So when I found Lindsay and her Instagram is binging bookish creations, we kind of did a collab on a limited number of copies, like special editions. And this is one of them and it has like the gold ombre and edges with the black. And we did two other versions as well that weren't ombre. And one of them had, so the collection has 4 courts of hell in it. So one of them had like a symbol for each representation of each court. The other one had like feathers on top with this really cool gold symbol going down the side that kind of matched like the cover. It was very cool. And I had ordered a copy for myself of each one to hold on to and treasure. But as it turns out, they sold out like immediately, and I wasn't really able to hold on to any of them except I managed to snag this one for myself. Yeah, so they sold out really fast because the edges were super cool. So I guess I'm gonna have to put in another order for some more for myself.
That's so exciting. I met Lindsay about, I guess it was probably a little over a year ago now, and we've been friends on social ever since. So shout out to Lindsay. Great
Yeah.
job. I love
Yay,
your
that's
artwork.
it. They're beautiful. And like we're gonna be doing some sticker designs with her as well.
Awesome.
Some bookish swag.
A little Canadian love going on. That's awesome.
Yeah, I love it.
So we already talked about some upcoming projects and events, but you don't have any deadlines or any hopeful timelines for that standalone book yet, do you?
No, I can't give you a date or timeline, only because like in my head I have a date, but sometimes that doesn't always align with other
Yeah.
people's dates when it comes to,
The
because
editing
there's a lot of,
process.
yeah, there's a lot of working parts behind it, like the editing process, the book cover design, like all these things. So the date in my head might not work
Yeah.
out as well with the date and everybody else's head. So I'm hesitant to say a date just yet until I kind of get it back from the editor and know how much work needs to be done and how far out that's.
And have you done a title reveal yet?
I haven't. It's
Okay.
the cover design is almost done, so I was kind of waiting for that to be done so
Do
that
them together?
I could get the graphics and stuff like that, so I can do some cool social media stuff with it.
Awesome. So
Yeah.
we'll have to keep an eye out for that.
Yes.
What's the best way for readers to engage with you?
Definitely on Instagram, on social. I have other socials like Facebook and stuff, but I'll be honest, I'm pretty bad at monitoring the Facebook one. So Instagram is definitely the easiest way to find me and engage with me and be up to date on things. As Instagram's kind of the one that I post on. So yeah, my Instagram is at author K Kirchberger. So it's simple.
So that's how I found you.
Yeah, that's how I found you.
Are there any particular interactions with readers that have stuck out in your mind?
Yeah, actually. So I was in a local bookstore in my town discussing my book with the owner of the store because they're one of the people who carry it. And there was this woman in the store browsing in the fantasy section. And I remember her being like just kind of like in the background, but you know, like casually like flipping through a book, but like,
Yeah.
you know, you could tell she was kind of like listening a little bit, you know. And then later she had messaged me on Instagram and, you know, she said something along the lines of like, hey, like I overheard your conversation in the store, like, and she's like, I'm so excited to read your book. And then when it did come out, because she was on my Instagram, so she had asked me like when it was coming out and we chatted a bit. And then when it did come out, like she bought two copies during the release week so that she could read it with her, I think it was her sister-in-law. I could be remembering that wrong. Maybe her sister, something like that. But yeah, and then after she did read it, she reached out to me as well and told me what she thought of it, which was great. And I think it was just such like a nice natural interaction to have with somebody. Because you know, normally the people that you like directly interact with are people like that you know, right? That have read your book. And then sometimes in that sense you don't get like their honest opinion because it's your mom's friend, whatever, who's read the book and is like, oh, it's so great, right? Like,
Yeah.
so I think it was just like a nice, honest, like natural interaction to have with somebody that you know, randomly overheard or bumped into at a bookstore.
I remember doing one of my podcasts and I don't remember her name right now. I'm going to take that out just a sec. I remember doing one of my podcasts and the author I was speaking to at the time said you should look forward to bad reviews because it means that you finally hit your outer circle, outside of your circle. And I think that's really a great way to look at it because if you have a bad review, it means somebody without any vested interest in how you feel is reading your book.
Yeah, I know. I think that no, that's a good point for sure. Like I never really thought of it that way.
Yeah,
But I do like it. I do like it.
there is some truth to it. I mean, having a bad review stinks, but you know, not everybody's going to like the same cup of tea. I mean, some don't even like tea.
Exactly. No, exactly. Yeah.
So it
Yeah. Bad
definitely makes
reviews.
sense that if you get a bad review, it's somebody who's just being honest with how they feel. And that's not necessarily going to be somebody that you know. It's really cool to think of it that way, I think.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely a better way to look at it because, yeah, like bad reviews, negative criticism, like it can be tough, right? But yeah, that's exactly it. Like, not everyone is going to like the book you put out, and it's just as a reader, like you know that, right? Like, you don't like every single book you read, right? So, like,
No, exactly.
why would every person like your book?
Exactly.
Yeah, I think you just have to
Find the
read them because
lovers.
read the bad reviews because you have to, and honestly, sometimes they can be helpful, like constructive criticism, but yeah, you
Yeah.
just have to not linger on them too long.
So, last question, and it's hit or miss. You know your elevator pitch for your book.
Oh my goodness.
Give us the synopsis of why people would love to dive into your world.
I'm so bad with elevator pitches, honestly. And I know it's something I need to get better at for sure. And especially, like I said, I have that local author book fair coming up, and like people are going to come over and be like, "Oh, what's your book about?" And I'm going to be like, "Oh, well, like read the back. It's right here." Or
All right,
like,
it's a trial run for this
I
coming up
know,
event.
I know. I feel like my elevator pitches are actually like if the elevator was like going up 300 floors. Because they're so long and like a roundabout. So, okay, so like once a year, a draw is held in the capital that requires four mortals. So I'm bad at this. So, there's a mortal realm, and then there are other realms, and one of them is the realm of hell. So hell's not like a place in the biblical sense. Hell's like a physical realm, like a world that you can go to, just like ours. So this draw that's held in the capital requires four mortals from each town be given over to hell. So the mortals are taken to hell where they'll either become immortal in one of the four courts or they will perish in the trials. So there's four courts in hell. So one mortal goes to the court of blood, which is the vampires. One goes to the court of moon, court of werewolves. A third is sent to the court of spell with warlocks and witches. And a final mortal, always a female, goes to the court of song, which is sirens. So hell is kind of home to the creatures that are considered of demonic nature. Like werewolves, vampires, sirens, witches, warlocks, that kind of stuff. So back in the mortal realm, 23-year-old Kenna hasn't had her name called for the collection since she became eligible at the age of 18. And she has this strong feeling that this is going to be her year. Like something's going to change, but it's not her name that's called. It's her like best friend who's really like her only family type situation. And so her best friend's name is called instead. So not willing to be without her, she follows her friend through the gateway to hell before it closes, but she doesn't know where her friend is in hell or which court she was collected for. So she has to kind of brave hell in all four courts as a mortal to find her friend. Yeah. And, like kind of along the way, she gains the help of an alluring stranger. It's romantasy, so there's a love interest, who holds a lot of sway in hell. Yeah. As like their fates intertwine and everything happens. Yeah.
That's
That's what I have.
fantastic. You got me.
Yeah, so you'll have to read more to find out.
I
Long-winded
think I might
elevator
wait a
pitch.
little bit until I know that second book is almost out. Because I I think that it's awesome to have a cliffhanger ending. It has value, but I definitely much more appreciate them when I can go, okay, next.
I know, I know, I know. I feel the same way, and I feel as if a lot of my readers do too, and they're like, "Where's the second one? Like, when is it coming? It's coming, right?" Like, even people I know, like who have read it, who are friends, like I get texts all the time being like, "So, how's that book coming along?" And I'm like, "Leave me alone. It's coming. Leave me be."
That's awesome.
Yeah,
And you've got another one to just fill the gap for people, make them happy.
exactly. It's all coming. Just be patient. Be patient.
Mastery takes moments. It's the way it goes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Krystal, I had so much fun talking with you tonight. Thank you so
Yeah,
much
me
for joining
too.
me.
Yeah, so thank you so much for having me. It was a lot of fun. This is my first time doing like a like a real podcast. So I was a little nervous that I was gonna, blurt out weird answers or something, but you were like super easy to chat with. It was super fun.
I'm really glad you had fun. I definitely don't take myself too seriously.
I'm sure you could tell I don't either.
Well, I look forward to the other book coming out so that I can read both of them together. And of course, the middle one.
Awesome.
And now that everyone knows how to find you, hopefully they will be able to dive in. And your books are available on Amazon, I would assume,
They are.
and then some local stores or anywhere else that people can find them.
Yeah, so Amazon's definitely the most convenient place for readers to pick it up, but there are some local to me, bookstores that like independent bookstores that carry it. But I guess that's kind of it
Only
depends
good
where
if
the
you live
re
in Midland.
Yeah, if you live in Midland, you'll be able to find it in little stores like in Midland or Barrie or Collingwood. But yeah, if you're not in the area, Amazon.
So, well, I really am excited for you, and I hope that your journey is long and successful because I think that that is a captivating story concept. So, very
Thank
excited
you.
for you.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
so
much.
much.